Okay, so this is the sway bar, and that's how I took it out. The instructions say that we're supposed to flip it over, and the driver's side is now the passenger side, and the passenger side is now the driver's side, so it's going to be installed that way. Okay, so when you put your sway bar in, they supply these little blocks here, and they go on both sides to space out the sway bar for the new lift. And what they didn't really mention in the instructions, or at least maybe I'm not reading it right, to me it looks like you got to take these off. They're just saying keep it loose and then put them in and then tighten them down, but they don't even line up. They just don't. But if you take this off and you flip it around to this side of the sway bar, then it'll line up and it'll bolt up just fine. And here's what your sway bar should look like. And it fitted really nice. It fit really nice. And it bolted together really easy. And yeah, I think that's how it should be. It wasn't going to go together if that end link was on the other side. There's just no way. You'd have to bend that end link in like that, and that's just not going to happen. So remember to reinstall your ABS lines and tighten them down, and reinstall your brake lines and connect your brake calipers and all that stuff, and the whole front end's done. Also, don't forget to refill the diff with oil. In this vehicle I put BG 7590 gear oil in it. Okay, for the strut brace, they give you these little spacers here, and there's 6 of them, and they give you 6 bolts, brand new bolts, and they come with lock washers, and they install just like that. Just give you kind of a look there. And I got same thing on the other side, and that's how you make the strut brace work. So that's the front, that's done now. I'm going to turn it around and put it on the lift the other way so I can do the rear. But if you're looking for the squatted look, just stop right here. Okay, so now we're at the rear, and it says in the instructions to remove the driver's side lower link, which is this one right here. And I guess we're starting with that one, and the instructions say that they may have to be cut because they may be rusted in, and I think that is possible, but I'm going to try to get them out. The new lower arm, control arm, is slightly longer. That's why they're replacing it. Okay, we did the lower link now. Now we're going to have to do the upper link as per the instructions, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get at because the exhaust is in the way. The upper links are also a little bit longer than the factory ones. Okay, so I was having trouble getting that upper link to start, get a bolt in there. It wasn't lining up. So what I did was I removed the one on the other side, and then I stuck a pry bar right in here. And then I was able to pry on that and move the diff back and forth, and I'd lean against it, and then I'd put the bolt in the right spot up there, and I got it to go through, and it was fairly easy. Okay, so one gave me an issue, so I cut the drag link off, and then I ground away at the rubber bushing, and I cut a slit into it because I need that bolt. I don't have another bolt to replace it. And that's how I got it off, and then it came off just fine. Okay, so all the 4-link bars are in. I got them in. New bar, new bar, new bar. The one that gave me a problem was this one right here. That one's in, that one's in. Now we've got to work on that brake line right there, and they give us an extended brake line, and we got to just replace that. New extended brake line is installed. Okay, so the next thing that they're saying is if it has ABS, which it does, I've got these 2 sensors here. We're going to have to unbolt that, and then they're saying drill a hole and remount that somewhere else. I'm not sure where I'm going to remount that just yet. Maybe I'll just leave it loose until I hang the axle, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so they're saying remove upper bolt for Panhard bar, which I believe is this bar here. I'd call it a track bar, but Panhard bar, whatever. So remove this, and this is where we're going to install the drop bracket for this bar. So this is the Panhard bar drop bracket. The problem is it doesn't fit. You can see it doesn't line up, and I know they say drill holes, but I feel like this should be butted up against the back of there, and this little L bracket thing is kind of in the way. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify their kit a little bit. I'm going to cut that little ear off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all the metal around here, And when I get this thing bolted into place, I'm going to weld all the way around here and weld it in place, because I've seen in other videos where these drop brackets, actually when you get them in, the suspension moves and the Panhard bar moves around like this a little bit, and it wears against their little L bracket thing, and just that movement shouldn't be there. It just shouldn't be there. That's why the factory is welded solid and there's nothing for it to pivot on. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I got that drop down bracket in. I took that L, I didn't cut it, I just straightened it out so that it would fit in there. And then I adjusted it, tweaked it, welded it in. And I think that'll be a lot stronger than, you know, just having it bolted there with 2 bolts. And it won't have any movement at all. It'll do exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay, when you're doing this, pry this isolator out of here for your spring. You're going to put your spring spacer there. And then you're going to put that isolator on the other side of it. And then you're going to put your spring in, and then you're going to jack up your spring and then connect your shock. And that's what holds everything together. What it kind of looks like when it's going together, make sure you rotate your spring to that little pocket right there so that it's in the right spot. And then you're going to get this isolator and you're going to put it right up in here like that. You can hold it there. Turn that thing. Actually, that cutout probably goes like this. And then you see that flat spot for the cutout? I think that's there for the tire clearance. And then start jacking it up. Let me zoom this out. And then start jacking it up. And then you just hold it there with your jack, and then you get your shock in place, and your shock holds everything together. So I got the shock in place. Everything's in place, the spring is in place, the spring is on the right perch. Just got to tighten up the rest of the A-arm bolts now. Everything's tight. And I'm going to lift it up. What they didn't tell you is you should loosen these e-brake cables. Like, they got mounts, and they're going to have to be, you have to take 2 of them off on each side. There's 2 mounts on each side for the e-brake cables. Otherwise, you're going to pull on them. And frankly, I don't know what you're going to do with the mounts, because there's no place to mount them, and they didn't give any brackets for that as far as I can see. I do have some leftover parts that I'm not sure what they're for. I've got this bracket here that they made no mention of in the instructions, 2 of them. I have the extra bolt is for the track bar at the back. This bracket, I haven't got a clue what that's for. And this one, I think, is a spacer of some kind for the drive shaft. And I'm going to take a look at that next, because I didn't see anything in the instructions about the drive shaft. So, other than a spacer, which I presume goes between the differential and the drive shaft, I've seen in other videos, but this kit doesn't come with that. So, I don't know. I'm going to investigate and find out where that bracket goes, and I'll show you. Okay, so back to the front differential. I talked to the guys at Zukination there, and told them the parts I had left over, and I couldn't figure out where they went. And I explained what bracket I had, and he said that they probably packaged the incorrect one for the front diff, and I should have a different one because this is the XR7 model. And the one that they have will probably lower this, and they say it'll go in a lot easier, and it'll lower it down just a little bit more. So I just sent them an email, and they said they'll probably ship out the correct bracket for me. So I said thank you, and I do appreciate their lift. It was fairly, it's a really good quality lift. It is a little bit of a pain to do, but that's just because lots of stuff on this vehicle was rusted together, and it was difficult to put together. Because everything was fighting me along the way, all the rusted in bolts and stuff. But going back together, it was fairly easy. So I talked to Zukination about another bracket that I have that I'm not sure what it was for, and they told me that I'm going to have to modify the hanger bearing bracket, and they're going to send me instructions on how to do that. So I need to remove the drive shaft in order to do that. So I've got two bolts, it looks like they're on top. Probably can see them there, and then take these drive shaft bolts out, and then that slip yoke will slide right out of the transmission. Okay, so these brackets here, I wasn't sure what they were for, and I just talked to Zukination there, and the young guy there helped me out, and he's very knowledgeable with these kits. So what these are, this is a new hanger bearing drop down bracket for the drive shaft, and then these pieces go like this, just like that, and then you cut these brackets off, and then you drill holes through that part there and that part there, and then you put the new bracket on there and you bolt it to there. And that was their solution for the drive shaft. And that'll work just fine. I'm thinking about maybe just welding it rather than just bolting it, because I like the idea of welds. Okay, so I opted to weld the L brackets to the hanger bearing after I cut off the factory one, and I set it up so that this flat piece was sitting right on the bearing. I haven't received the instructions yet, but I don't have time to wait. I want to get this vehicle done today. And yeah, I just welded it up, and now I'm going to bolt it into the vehicle. Well, first I'll throw a coat of paint on it just to make sure it's good. That's just a piece of slag there, but... Okay, drive shaft drop is in place. That's what it looks like now. And the angle is much softer. And there it is, 4.5 inch lift complete. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but you don't forget to bleed the rear brakes, because you had to replace that brake line. And that's it. Okay, I'm back on the lift. I got a problem. Drive shaft is contacting the exhaust that I clearanced. I guess I didn't clearance it enough. You can see where it's contacting there. Let's get the light in the right place here. Right there. So I presume this is probably related to the fact that I don't have the right drop down bracket for the rear part of the front diff. So I'm gonna just clearance that exhaust a little bit more and hope for the best. Okay, I got a fair bit more clearance there now. I guess I'll road test that and we'll see if that clears now. Also, I figured out where this bracket goes that wasn't really in the instructions. It goes like, I think it goes like this, and you see those two holes on the diff? It goes in there like that, and then the flat part of this sits on something, but it's not for this vehicle. It's for a tracker or something like that. This is the XR7 Vitara, so it's a little bit different. They said they have a different bracket for it, so they said they were sending it out, and then I'll get that corrected, and it'll bring this diff down just a little bit more, giving me more clearance from the exhaust. Because as it sits right now in four-wheel drive, when I make a right or left turn, that differential wants to jump up and down, and that's why it was contacting that exhaust. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you out with installing your Zukination 4.5 inch lift kit. Thanks for watching, and please hit like and subscribe.